Hello, everybody. Welcome into the NBA Front Office Show. It's Friday. You know what that means.
Front Office Friday! NBA offseason edition.
Let's go. I'm Trevor Lane. He's Keith Smith.
And we're Wild Stallions!
I
was not ready for that. I loved it.
Keith did not know about that. I had to. If you watched yesterday's show, you know why we are Wild Stallions.
Perfect.
Oh, we've got a lot to talk about on today's show. So much going on around the NBA. News, rumors, things that actually happened, deals that went down, all kinds of stuff to get into. And I guess let's start there, Keith. What are the Bulls doing? Alex Caruso straight up for Josh Giddey. What's striking is the Bulls made a trade with a team that is known for having all the picks, and the Bulls got none of them. What's the deal?
I had a friend in the league text me and say, he goes, I'm actually surprised Presti didn't convince him to swap the 11th pick for the 12th pick.
Right.
In this trade too. Like, it's just crazy. Yeah. I don't really know if the Bulls are kicking off a rebuild here, if it is Zach LaVine trades coming, which I think is coming independent of rebuild or not. But if you trade Zach LaVine, if you trade or don't trade Nick Vucevic, if you don't re-sign DeMar DeRozan, this starts to make a lot more sense. Then it feels like, all right, I can kind of get there, right? We're now in a spot where, all right, let's roll forward with Giddey, some other young guys, and we're going to build this roster up and move forward that way. I think that would probably be okay. But I don't have any faith that's where they're going. So, yeah, I'm with you. You should have at least – the Thunder have more picks than they can possibly use. You couldn't have been like you throwing a couple future seconds, and at least then it would feel a little more evened out on that. And I like Josh Giddey as a player. I'm not a huge fan of him, but I think he's fine. But yeah, this is just rough for Bulls fans. Fantastic for the Thunder. What a deal for them. It's funny. I had a good friend of mine text me too and said, I'm standing here at the Celtics parade. And he goes, it's so Celtics. There's people like, why didn't we trade for Giddey if that's all it took to get him? And I was like, you're literally at a championship parade complaining about it.
Why didn't we trade for Giddey if that's all it took to get him?
I'm sorry, Caruso. I meant Caruso.
Oh, okay. I was like, what?
Yeah, sorry, I meant Caruso. I was reading a comment about Giddey. But yeah, he did. And I was like, that's so Celtics fans. Like, you're literally at a championship parade and you're complaining about moves the team didn't make, but I've seen that all over social media today with people being like, why didn't our team trade for Caruso? And that's probably a fair ask of some of it, or we're going to find out that the Bulls think Josh Giddey is absolutely incredible and love him, and they're ready to move on with him as a huge part of whatever it is they're building. Who knows?
Who knows what the hell they're building there in
it's
Chicago?
The Bulls, man. I don't. They're so confusing. They won't lean into rebuilding, but they never do enough to actually be full on go for it contenders either. So I don't understand them. They confuse me.
Keith, it's so confusing that check this out. I saw this and I went, oh, we know what's going on. By the way, thank you, 3 Theory, for the super chat there.
Yeah, thank you.
Woj tweets this out. The Bulls created a $2.8 million trade exception with the Alex Caruso Josh Giddey trade. The day after, it's like the Bulls were taking so much fire for this that somebody told Woj, hey, do us a solid and mention that we get that we got something else out of the deal. Because a $2.8 million trade exception, like, realistically, you're not doing anything with that. So yeah, I was like, okay, a little bit of damage control, trying to soften the blow with whatever they possibly can.
Yeah, that trade's for like nerds like me who want to make sure I have it accounted for in my cap sheets. They're not going to do anything with that. Absolutely not. It's that's whatever at this point.
Now, I think what was interesting though about this was the rumor that the Bulls, part of the reason why they wanted Giddey was because they want to replace Lonzo Ball, who has not played in a couple of years now. So you're replacing a guy who wasn't even playing anyway, but he is attempting to make a comeback this season, but the Bulls reportedly are going to try to trade him or just buy him out. So he's finally back, and now we're going to move on before he gets on the floor. That tells you the Bulls don't have a lot of faith in Lonzo Ball's comeback here. But what are your thoughts on that, on Josh Giddey being a replacement for Lonzo Ball in their offense?
If your idea is let's rebuild and start over that way, sure. But if your idea is let's re-sign DeRozan and trade Levine for equal players in terms of win now value, and then keep Vucevic and re-sign Patrick Williams and just run the same team back out there, I don't know. It feels a lot like it probably would feel like if Lonzo was out there. I don't know. I mean, I don't have really any faith that Lonzo's going to play or hold up to playing much more than minimal time. But yeah, I don't know. Again, if the Bulls are leaning towards a rebuild, and it's funny, I've seen some people who cover the Bulls who said that they really do feel like this feels a little different in terms of things they've done in the past, where maybe that is the direction they're going. We'll know in the next week or so here if they're re-signing DeMar DeRozan or not. So if DeMar DeRozan just leaves and the Bulls are out, then I'll feel like, all right, maybe they are moving in this direction. We said it months ago. Lonzo Ball is, unfortunately, Lonzo Ball's expiring contract now. Like, until we see him play and play well, no one's going to give anything of value. It's just an expiring deal to reset a cap sheet a little bit. So we'll see, what that looks like ultimately in the end. I'm not surprised that they're going to try to trade him, buy him out. I mean, I guess, I don't know. I think that would probably be a post-deadline thing. Yeah, there's no purpose. You'd rather have him as matching salary in a trade at this point. It's not like they're going to be a cap space team or anything like that. So yeah, I don't know. Let's see where it goes from here. This is why we don't, as much as right now, I don't like this trade for the Bulls. I don't want to go all hog wild. Like, I hate this. What a bunch of idiots, fire everybody, because I don't know what the bigger picture is. We'll talk in like the middle of July if they haven't done anything else. Then I may feel very, very differently on this trade.
It's possible there are other moves that make this make more sense. From a pure value perspective, I don't like it. I do think sometimes we're prisoners of the moment. The last thing we saw of Josh Giddey was him getting played off the floor in the playoffs. And so we think, oh, he's terrible. He's not good. Why are you doing this? That sort of thing. I think he's actually still a very talented player. And if we just look at what happened in the playoffs as who he is as a basketball player, we're going to wind up with an overly negative perception of him. So I'm not going to say there's no chance this can work out, but purely from a value perspective, especially when the Bulls reportedly had a top 10 pick on the table for Alex Caruso before the trade deadline, and they made the decision, no, we want to keep him so we can make sure we make the play-in tournament. It's a little bewildering from that perspective that you just waited a few months and then got lesser value, in my opinion. But it's possible the Bulls really just love Giddey, and maybe it does work out for them and he turns into, the prospect that the Thunder were kind of hoping he was going to be. For OKC, it's a great fit. But let's move on. Let's
Giddey, just very quickly. 3 years in the league. He's played in 210 games. This is just regular season only. 13.9 points per game, 7.3 rebounds, 5.7 assists. He is a 75% free throw shooter, rather. Which
3 point would be amazing.
Yeah, right. Yeah, obviously that'd be the greatest shooter of all time. But sometimes free throw percentage that's that solid can lead towards improved 3-point shooting. He has improved as a 3-point shooter each year. 26% as a rookie, 32% last year, 32% 2 years ago, 34% just this season that just ended. So maybe there's baby steps improvement as a shooter. He's an excellent rebounder for his position. He's a really good playmaker. His playmaking was muted a little bit as other guys took on bigger roles for the Thunder over the years. But he's a good player. It's just the trade's just a little confusing that they couldn't get more.
All right, let's get into a rumor here. And let's start with this one because I think it's going to turn into an important PSA. Jimmy Butler will be traded. The words of Howard Beck. And people are running with that in aggregation mode. To me, this was more of like my bold prediction. Jimmy Butler will be, and people are taking that as asserting, oh, Howard Beck says Jimmy Butler's getting traded. Quick, who's he getting traded if this is happening? I don't think this was a breaking news type thing. This was more a bold prediction type thing. And it's important that we can tell the difference between those things when we're looking at all the different rumors that fly around this season.
Yeah, no, spot on with that. There was a where this came out of, as best we can tell, there was a piece that the Ringer did, which was a basically it's a off-season roundup of like what are things we think might happen this summer. And one of the very first questions was, who will be the biggest star to change teams this summer? And Howard Beck's answer was Jimmy Butler. And it does say Jimmy Butler will be traded. Now, maybe he wholeheartedly believes that, but this was not framed as I've seen the same aggregation you have as he is saying he will be traded with this. So
reporting.
Yeah, exactly. He's not reporting that. He wrote this, I think, much more, as you said, this is kind of one of my big predictions for the offseason. So
yeah,
maybe we'll see. I'm not going to rule out that Jimmy Butler gets traded. I just don't think there's a guarantee that happens.
Predictions don't always come true. I just predicted yesterday for the basketball bulletin on the YouTube channel as well as the Substack that Malik Monk was going to wind up with Orlando. It seemed like too great of a fit, and one of those things that just made so much sense. But instead, we got news that Malik Monk has agreed to a new deal with the Sacramento Kings. Of course, can't sign that until July 6th, but that's normal. 4 years, $78 million. What do you think about Malik Monk staying with the Kings and what that might mean for the market here? We look at Orlando, some of the other teams around the NBA who are hoping to pry Monk away from Sacramento.
Massive for Sacramento. They got him on a great deal. I tweeted this morning, and one of the things that I looked like when this deal came in, and full disclosure, you and I were talking, I think it was like 9:30 last night, and I was like, hey, I'm going to actually crash early tonight. I think it's the last night I might be able to get an early bedtime in for a while. We watched a little TV. I went to bed and then woke up to see this, and this wasn't even that late. That's kind of how early I fell asleep. But this trade, I feel like deal looks really good for the Kings because you got him for less than $20 million a year average annual value. Mm-hmm. They gave him everything they could under their early bird rights, which is a deal up to 4 years, and it starts at about 17-ish million, a little bit more than that. It climbs from there for a total of about 78 million. So huge for the Kings to keep this guy. And I've seen some people say he could have got more. I think if you're Malik Monk, you're looking at it and saying, yeah, I probably could have. I probably could have got 20, maybe even 25 million.
Yeah.
But I think he's in a spot where he's super happy in Sacramento. I think he really likes it there. I think he likes his role there. He likes his teammates. He loves playing with De'Aaron Fox. That's one of his buddies. So sometimes that's worth a few $1,000,000. And this is a guy, remember, he's been through some stuff in his career, right? He's had a hard time at various points with the drug suspension and everything else. Kings helped him get his career on track and really, he's played great there. So this is a win all around. I love these kind of things where a guy finds his place and really kind of locks in with that team.
We've got a little bit of news here. Apparently, Shams Charania reported the Pacers are working on an extension with TJ McConnell as well. So the Pacers getting some work done. Remember, we talked about this. Teams can't legally negotiate with free agents that are from other teams yet. They can do that June 30th. Right now, incumbent free agents can negotiate. That's why Pascal Siakam, maybe a TJ McConnell deal gets done, Malik Monk with the Kings. That's why this kind of stuff is happening right now. I do like Malik Monk's deal for the Kings. What does this mean for Orlando, who now are popping up as maybe a Zach LaVine destination? But to me, we talked about this, I believe it was yesterday or the day before. Zach LaVine is like the third, fourth option for all these teams that are gunning for some help on the wing. Maybe, and now Zach LaVine has been linked to the Kings too. Maybe he winds up playing with Malik Monk, but what happens? What are the domino effects of Malik Monk sticking with Sacramento?
Yeah, I don't know how much for Orlando. This is a domino for them. Maybe, right? I really don't know what to take from that. I don't know if Orlando was really in on Malik Monk or not. And that's probably now something we'll never know. But I think we're in a spot with Orlando, I think Jake Fisher talked about it, that the Magic's interest in Klay Thompson is limited. Not that they wouldn't like to have him, but they're not going to a huge monster contract. It's like really a 1-year deal is what they'd be willing to give Klay Thompson for more than what they paid Joe Ingles. So this is not a spot where they're going to like give him like 3 years, 80 million or anything like that. It sounds like it's really maybe a 1-year, $20 million deal, maybe a team option on that second year or something like that. So I don't really know that that's where we're going to see this kind of connect fully for the Magic with this. I think the Magic are going to be patient. I don't think they're going to be jumping in on anybody. And I'll say this, that organization has been locked tight on information coming out of there, moving up. We got to go all the way back to the draft a couple years ago. They kept it very close that they were drafting Paolo Banchero to the point where other people moved to the top of the board. And then the Magic went with Banchero anyway, and that came out much, much later. So I think they're going to do something because they've got a roughly $50 million to spend this summer, but I don't know that it's going to be this monster trade or a huge free agent signing or anything like that. I think they're going to be a little more patient. Wouldn't shock me fully if it was a big trade, but I just don't see one coming right now.
Are you looking at $50 million to spend as I'm assuming they don't pick up the team option on Joe Ingles? Then where do you see Mo Wagner sitting?
Yeah, so I think what they'll do is, and I wrote about this for Spot Track, I think they're going to decline both of those team options on Ingles and Wagner. And then what I think they'll do is maybe still try to bring those guys back. I think they overpaid Ingles last year. $11 million was a lot of money for him. I think with the idea of, hey, and then what if we give you $5 million left over cap space next year? And now it really is 2 years, $16 million deal. Feels a lot better for Joe Ingles. Why not? And then I think with Wagner, what you do is you decline his team option, take $8 million more in cap space, go use your cap space up, then give him, if you want to bring him back for $8 million, give him the room exception, which is exactly $8 million. You bring him back on that. He's happy. He gets to stay at basically the same exact contract. He can actually get like $6,000 more as it stands right now. So little tiny bump for him, and off we go. And you run it back with those two guys and maybe a couple other guys. The big losses, if the Magic go the cap space route, that I think are really probably going to happen if that's the direction they go, would be Markelle Fultz and Gary Harris. Those would be the one that they would that they would lose for sure. Because
those guys currently sit on the books. Their cap holds, what is this here? $25.5 million and then $19.5 million.
Yeah.
So they'll need to renounce those.
$45 million. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Let's get to this. Good question coming in here. Jermaine said, is Brandon Ingram's 15% trade kicker included in matching salary? If so, is it really $41.4 million instead of 36?
Yeah, it is a good question. Now, so little bit of a complicated answer. It can be included, but a player is allowed to waive any portion of a trade kicker to push a trade through. So let's say a team wants to trade for Brandon Ingram. They can only reasonably match his full salary amount of $36 million. Brandon Ingram could say, see you later, trade kicker, we're out. This came up with the Lakers and Anthony Davis very famously, because he waived part of his trade kicker because Los Angeles was where he wanted to be. So if Ingram was like, yeah, I'm cool going to whatever team it is trying to trade for me, he can waive any portion of that trade kicker that he wants. So he could take 5% of it. He could take the whole thing. He could demand to take the whole thing. And if he did, then the team would have to match the entire amount up to, I'm going to trust the math here because I didn't run it, but $41 million, which sounds about right math-wise on this. So yeah, that's where it would go to.
Well, and we'll see what happens there. And obviously that's where, not that that's going to necessarily allow him to completely steer his destination, certainly not as much as pending free agency and him needing a new deal and all that sort of stuff would, but it's another thing that Brandon Ingram could use to manipulate the situation to a degree. For example, saying, hey, if you send me to this team, I'll waive my trade kicker. If you send me there, I want the whole thing.
Yeah, happens all the time. That's a pretty common thing in the league.
All right, let's go here. We've got more, obviously, trade news, rumors. I love this time of year. Keith, yesterday, a lot of people were commenting on my hair yesterday. I had planned right after the show to go get a haircut, so it was just running wild. right? I'm not going to like put product in my hair, all that kind of stuff, right? Like I normally would. I'm going to go get my hair cut. And then the JJ Redick news broke. I've been doing this long enough. I should know there is no safe time to go get a haircut or something like that. And so yeah, still have not been able to go. I don't know if I'm going to get through. It's going to be the end of July by the time I have the ability to go do that. That's
since we're kind of on that subject. We're going to the movies tomorrow, and I'm like kind of terrified, like that something big will happen. But you know how it is. You got to cram in a little bit of family time before you know for certain it's going to get bonkers. So we're going to the movies. So I'll be at the movie theater like tomorrow from like noon to like 2. So if anything major is going to go down, there's your window. Now you know what to be on the lookout for.
Okay, if I do try to sneak off to get a haircut, I will try to make sure I don't do that at the same time. It's like
maybe that would guarantee a blockbuster.
That would guarantee that it would, but then neither one of us will be around to cover it. That would be the problem. It's like you don't want everybody that's in the presidential line of secession in the same room at the same time. Yeah. We can't both be out of commission at the same time. That would just be bad. Survivor. That's it exactly. All right. Paul George. Brian Windhorst says it's more likely he opts in to get traded than leaves in free agency. We also saw rumors that the Philadelphia 76ers saw their interest waning in Paul George. What's that all about? Because to me, that seemed like a clear target for the 76ers. It seemed like it made a lot of sense. There were rumors that James Harden was going to do everything he could to poison Paul George against going to the 76ers and tell him do not trust Daryl Morey because of the things that happened there. Do you think he was successful?
I don't know. I mean, maybe. I think I wonder, because this report doesn't make a ton of sense to come out for either Paul George or the Sixers. Like, it doesn't look great for anybody there unless it was a collective, like, hey, neither one of us is that down for this link up. So let's just put this out there, because then the Sixers are like, hey, we're not going that way. All of our cap space still open. And then Paul George can save a little face and be like, I'm not really that interested anyway, if that's where this was headed. So that could be a thing. As far as the opt-in and trade, what this does is this just opens up his market. Because as of right now, if it was just I'm leaving in free agency, you're talking Philly, Orlando, maybe OKC, maybe Utah. Like, those would be your teams. That Detroit, I guess, in theory, if he really wanted to do something kind of off the map here. But now if he says, I'm going to opt in and get traded, that opens up that world to basically everybody, because everybody could at least have some level of conversation of, all right, let's talk about maybe trading for Paul George. So I think that's probably a pretty smart move by him to say, hey, I'm still open to this too. I'm still open. And then what would happen is, much like we've seen with some other guys, he would just have to wait 6 months. And 6 months later, then he could sign the big max extension that he hasn't done yet. He could do that after 6 months with another team and sign that.
Well, if you're the Clippers, that would certainly be far preferable to him. Walking to Philadelphia's cap space would be an opt-in and trade. Then you're getting some assets back. I see the face here, but you think it wouldn't be?
I think it would depend. Like, let's say he said, I'm going to a team where they don't really want anything back from that team.
Okay.
That gets a little weird, right? But then they still control the process. So then it might be like, hey, it might be like Portland, right? Where it was, you got to get in a third team because we don't want what you're offering, right? Let's say he was like, I want to go to Miami. And the Clippers are like, we don't really want Tyler Hero. We want other stuff. Let's figure it out, get a third team in there. That it could play out that way. So but yeah, in general, yes, your premise is right. I just think it would all kind of depend on where he's angling to get to. But I don't know that he has any real leverage like that, because I don't know that there's anybody. Again, I just refer to the AD one because it's the easy one to go to. AD made it known, you can trade for me, but 6 months from now, I'm signing with the Lakers. Like I'm going, or a year from now, whenever it was going to be, I'm going to the Lakers when I can. And the Lakers made it clear, without opening up fully, we're going to have cap space to do something that year if we need to, right? And now it turned into, I don't know that anybody's like, yeah, we're going to have cap space to sign Paul George. Not at this point in his career.
When he's
I
35.
don't think anybody's, yeah, no one's really angling for that.
Yeah, he'll be 35 when he hits free agency. So, yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. All right, let's go here. I've got where did it go? Oh, Isham said he's calling JJ Redick a LeBron puppet. If they don't win it all this coming season, do LeBron and AD step up and take blame if they don't win it all? I think there's been plenty of blame to go around, plenty of blame to place everywhere. Darvin Ham obviously took the fall and took blame, but I've been saying for a while now that if you're trying to put the blame in any one place for shortcomings, this is true of any team, you're almost certainly wrong. It takes a lot of things to happen for a franchise to fall short of their goals or for them to struggle, things like that. It takes multiple things happening in concert. So does some of it fall on LeBron and Anthony Davis? I honestly think it most likely what would happen, where most of the blame would fall if the JJ Redick thing doesn't work out, it would probably be Rob Pelinka. That's probably where it would go. This was the hire that he was pushing for. And if it doesn't wind up working out, it's probably going to go on to Pelinka.
Completely agree. I think also this is part of why LeBron, whether true or not, I don't think he's been as involved in the coaching search. Like, I don't think he's sitting there interviewing people and all that. Clearly the team's getting his thoughts going in, because they're not going to do anything that he's going to be like, nope, I'm out of here. I don't want to work, play for that guy. Let me get out. But this is why he can say I wasn't involved, had nothing to do with it. So yeah. And we've got
I
a
think
couple
part
people
of it
saying, read my super chat. We'll get to them. We'll clear them all up.
We're getting there. We've got a lot to talk about today.
A lot of stuff today. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Let's go here. Order of operations that could get the Celtics under the second apron for free agency. I haven't looked at the cap sheet.
Not. I mean, the reality is they're pretty well into that second apron right now. They're about 17 million over as it stands right now. So probably not. It would involve having to trade somebody that they're not going to trade. So very unlikely.
You'd have to shed salary, and that would be, like Al Horford or something. They're not going to do that. So
no, this is going to be a pretty boring offseason, I think, for the Celtics. I think it should be. Yeah, it's going to be extend Tatum, extend Hauser, maybe extend Derek White, fill out the bench, call it good, and run it back.
This one says, hey guys, Tim Bontemp said on the Hoop Collective he thinks the Chris Paul contract is holding up a Klay extension. But TK and Slater said Golden State Warriors haven't had any conversations on an extension. Whose reporting do you buy? Like Chris Paul's contract, in that I didn't listen to what Bontemp said, so I don't know what the exact context was. Yeah. But my guess would be they're waiting to see if something materializes on the trade front before making a final decision on that non-guaranteed deal and waiving Chris Paul, which is what we expect to happen. And then that's wwhat they're not doing a Klay extension, because they don't have the money for it yet because of the Chris Paul contract. I mean, that does make some sense if that's what we're looking at. But as far as whose reporting do you buy, if there hasn't been any conversations on an extension, I find that, look, I don't know. I'm not plugged in with the Warriors. I don't know what that looks like. I can't say, oh, specifically, yes, I've heard this or I've heard that. That would be me lying here. But if I'm looking at this, I find it hard to believe, in terms of what has the ring of truth, that the Warriors at no point have had any conversation about what an extension would potentially look like or could potentially look like with Klay Thompson, because that just tells you that's just not doing your job. If you're not having at least a starter conversation, hey, what would the expectation be, and figuring some things out from there.
Yeah, here's the thing with the Warriors. If they use Chris Paul's $30 million contract, guarantee any meaningful portion of that, and use it as a trade chip, they're not going to get under the aprons. Like, that's just not going to happen. Their path now to getting under the tax apron is to just straight up waive Chris Paul. I believe that's where this probably goes. Maybe some deal falls in their lap that is too good to pass up, and maybe at that point they're like, yeah, we just can't extend Klay Thompson. We're going to have to let him go because now we brought on player X for $30 million. Maybe that is how that all comes together. I don't necessarily think that's how it'll go. So yeah, I mean, maybe they are still fishing around to see what they could do, and they're leaving it with Thompson, and maybe they take back 15 million in a Chris Paul trade. And they're like, all right, now Klay, we can only offer you 15 million, and that still gets us under the apron or wherever they want to be. Maybe that's holding things up. I don't know. I've seen varying reports on Warriors and Klay have exchanged numbers, and the deals aren't long enough. They're offering only short-term deals. I would say I assume TK is Tim Kawakami and Anthony Slater, which would make sense. They both cover the team. If they're saying they haven't had any conversations, I would need to read it myself to see what they actually said, but I would probably believe that too. I don't know. I think it's probably all over the place. My guess is the truth lies somewhere in the middle. I'm sure they've had some level of conversation with Klay, and they just haven't found a workable kind of deal yet, whether it be years, dollars, or years and dollars.
It's like there's people who believe that LeBron makes all the Lakers decisions, and then there's stories coming out that LeBron has had no involvement in their coaching search. Where's the truth? Probably somewhere in the middle. Like he's probably had they ran something by him or something like that.
Absolutely.
Which is where the truth tends to lie. Christian said, Keith, could Brook Lopez fit into the Thunder's defensive scheme? And can you articulate how a drop big like Lopez is different from how Chet plays?
They'd have to do some tweaks when Lopez plays for sure, because you're right. He's a drop big. So what that means is drop coverage it's a pick and roll coverage. So team runs a pick and roll. You bring the center into the action, and rather than Brook Lopez coming up to the level of the ball, he hangs back. You essentially switch the action without switching at the level of the ball. It's designed into not letting players get downhill. Brook Lopez is elite at that. He also has just enough size that if you want to dribble into a mid-range pull-up, he can challenge it, but you're also willing to give that shot up. Where it can run into trouble in drop coverage, which where Boston has been able to get them at times in the past. Philly got him a couple times with Tyrese Maxey and things like this. And the Pacers got them a lot with this in this playoffs, was if you start running your screens 35 feet away from the basket, Brook Lopez is in dropping back to the paint, and your guys are pulling up from the three-point arc, free and clear with a look. And that's what the Pacers want out of guys like Halliburton and Nembhard in that. Now, you can also bring other coverages. What the Bucks did a lot was they would bring help from the opposite side, because their whole goal was limit corner threes, limit layups. They wanted you taking above the break threes and that. Boston played extreme drop this year with Porzingis quite a bit. A little less so with Horford there. How it's different from Chet. Chet's very athletic, so he can switch at the level of the ball. Whether they switch or they hard hedge and recover kind of stuff. They might want to ice the pick and roll, allow the coverage there, rotate on the backside. You can do a lot of different stuff with a guy like Chet just because he's a lot more mobile. So you could make it work, and they've got a lot of smart players and really good coaches. I assume they would make it work, but you would have to play a little bit differently with Lopez, anchoring your defense versus with Holmgren.
Yeah, and you would be able to mix things up when you sub Lopez out. Going on 36 years old, you're not expecting him to play 40 minutes a night, 35 minutes a night, or whatever. So you would still have opportunity to be somewhat flexible with your defensive schemes. Just while he was on the floor, you would essentially be committing to that type of coverage, because you can't. If you try to switch with Brook Lopez, you're getting torched. You're getting torched with him. So you can't do that.
Bucks tried that early on under Adrian Griffin. I think just for a different look. They were doing a lot of hedge and recover, which isn't really a straight switch. It's more the big holds up the ball handler, and then you allowed to recover back, and it just didn't work out good. Now, the difference is I guess it's really not a difference, where you could adopt some of the things the Bucks do. Giannis makes a lot of stuff work because he covers so much ground, right? And he can erase a lot of things if Brook Lopez isn't where you need him to be, or if you catch him in a rough spot. Holmgren can do a lot of that same stuff as Giannis because he moves his feet. He's a great shot blocker. So you could do a lot of different looks there. That would be a lot of fun to watch play out if that's the way it went. And I wouldn't hate that acquisition for the Thunder at all, especially to your point. Lopez is probably, to keep him at his best all year, 25-minute-a-night guy.
Yeah.
Play him open games, open each half next to Chet. Then he also kind of slides into becoming Chet's backup at points. Like I would love that. I think that's not a bad way to go. I don't think it's how it's going to play out. So I don't think the Bucks are actually going to trade him, but it would work.
And he wouldn't clog the paint for SGA's 4As to the rim too. So that would be useful as well.
Shooter, right? One more shooter to kick to. Yeah.
Keep doing it. Keep doing it. All right.
Lopez and Holmgren roaming around behind Caruso, Dort, and SGA and Williams as your perimeter guys. Ooh, boy, that'd be a hard team to score on.
It really would. It really would. All right. Let's talk draft for a moment here. The Hawks are weighing Ricochet versus Klingon. And we talked about this. I don't recall if it was yesterday, day before, whatever, but that Donovan Klingon's range seems to be 1 through 7, which is all but unheard of at the top of a draft here. But the Hawks looking between those two guys, seems like Alex Sarr is not in the mix, and he is. And who knows, maybe this is a great smokescreen again, but it does seem like Alex Sarr is settling in to that number 2 spot to Washington. So what do you think about this? Ricochet versus Klingon for the Hawks. And if Klingon doesn't go number 1, he could potentially fall all the way to 7.
I don't think he'd get to 7 because I think someone's going to trade up and snag him.
Yeah.
There's a lot of smoke, especially around the Rockets pick at 3, where the Rockets wouldn't drop all the way out, but they may drop a little later. And one of the things that keeps coming up over and over and over again is they really like Marcus Smart. Connecting some dots, Marcus Smart played for Ime Udoka. Ime Udoka loved him. I could see a deal where the Grizzlies do like Smart and 9 for something from the Rockets and 3. Maybe Jayshawn Tate or something like that, where just a little salary balancer there. So Houston's not taking on so much salary. And that's how you make that work. I think we could see something come into play there where we do see some kind of move. I mean, you could even do like Jock Landale goes back. And now, then you kind of put the issue on the Grizzlies of like, hey, how do you want to manage your roster? You figure it out. But that could be something that we see going that direction where Klingon, I don't know that he gets past like 3 through 5 because I think a team will trade up to get him. I know there's a lot of teams sitting in the later half of the lottery that really, really like him. But at the top, yeah, I mean, I don't know that that's where the Hawks want to go. Maybe they're all in on Alex Sarr. Maybe this is all smoke screen and they're like, we're all in. But I do believe Washington is just going to take whoever's there out of Sarr and Ricochet, and that's how they're going to go. And that's where it's going to be with that. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe now Atlanta is pivoting a little bit and our guy Zachary Ricochet is off the board.
What do they?
I like that though.
Oh my gosh, what if the Hawks
we're not going to be popular in France now?
No, we're not. We're not. What happens if the Hawks take Klingon? What do the Wizards do?
That's a good question. I would go with Sarr. They need a big. Like that's the one spot where they don't really have a player for the future really locked in. They've got wings. They don't really have guards, but that would be an overdraft there. I think Ricochet and Koulibaly, interesting that you could kind of say these are our wing pairing of the future and we're moving forward with these two guys, but I would go Sarr and then see where Ricochet lands out from there. For what it's worth, Sam Vecini over on The Athletic moved Klingon into the number 1 spot in his latest mock draft.
And Sam's pretty good at this.
Yeah, this wasn't a Sam Vecini thinks it should go mock draft. This was a combining some intel with his own thoughts kind of mock draft. So that's a little interesting. That is.
Keith, we got a little bit here. I mean, there's the story from yesterday that the 76ers are not as interested in Paul George anymore. Jake Fisher, a few minutes ago on X, I wouldn't discount the Sixers' interest in Paul George until his status is finalized in Los Angeles or elsewhere. He's been atop Philadelphia's wish list for some time. If the Sixers get the chance to talk to George on June 30th.
Source off.
There you go.
Oh, yeah. We'll see.
So, as always.
Pull this one up real quick.
Go for it.
Is Topic really falling into the late teens? I don't know if it's the late teens, but I think he is falling a little bit in the back half of the lottery now. Might be more mid-teens.
Is it the knee thing?
Drafted. I think some teams are a little scared off on the knee. I think some teams are a little worried about, can we really have an on-ball point guard who's not a great shooter yet? Where is that going to go? So I think he did that. He may have fallen off a little bit. Let me also go to this real quick. Whoops, not that one. No one's talking about the Celtics, LOL. Welcome to the NBA world. We move on quickly. 28 teams have been geared up for a couple weeks now for the offseason. More than that have been focused on the offseason for a couple months. Boston had their celebration. They had their parade today. A bunch of people have said that I'm not at the parade. I don't live in Boston. I live in Orlando.
Yep.
I've got work to do. So I can't, unfortunately, I couldn't travel to Boston for the parade as much as I would have loved it. If I was living in Boston, yes, I would have been at the parade today, and then I would have worked around it. But this would be probably the worst time for me to be like, all right, see, I'm out of here to travel and be, on a plane for a few hours and then at a parade for a few hours more. Unfortunately is not really unfortunate. That's not the best way to phrase that because I'm very fortunate to do what I do. Just a lot of work going on right now.
Keith, I am scheduled to travel a little bit on, was it Monday, Tuesday, the day before the draft, the 25th. And I'm just driving and I'm nervous as hell. I'm going to be gone for like half the day and I'm nervous as hell about what's going to happen that day.
Yeah, it's a scary time to be in a spot where you can't just do what you got to do. Right.
It really is. It really is. Okay. Let's go here. Giovanni said, even though Monty ended negatively, I would have loved for him for LA. JJ needs to set the tone and bring something new to LA. Monty, I really just don't see him coaching this year. I mean, look, I could be totally wrong. It's not like I called up Monty and he said, yeah, I'm out. I'm not going to coach. I just, given the particulars of the situation, I would be surprised if he's coaching in the NBA this season. If I was him, I'd be taking a year off. And it seemed like that's what he wanted to do last year until the Pistons gave him an offer he couldn't refuse.
Yep. I'm with you. I don't see any way he coaches this year. Maybe he gets back in. I believe coaches coach. It's what they do. And maybe he, after a year, says, I want to get back in and there's a better spot for him to land. But yeah, I get it why he's not there. As far as JJ needs to set the tone and bring something new to LA, sure. Yeah, I mean, yeah. We've talked about it already. It feels like a lot because this was like what we figure out
7-week process,
long thing. Yeah. So we've said everything we need to say on JJ Redick, but yeah, I am very excited to see how this goes with JJ Redick, and I think some of the process stuff of I would like to see him invest in for his staff, veterans to assist him in learning how to do this, as well as some really good development coaches. Because I super bought into that whole idea of like building an NCAA like program with the end of your bench with the apron kind of stuff. I kind of love that. So I would make sure you get some player development guys there too.
All right, let's go here. Jazz, we've heard some rumblings of this before, but the Jazz are willing to move on from Walker Kessler. Now, what's the price is always going to be the question, but I find it interesting. This is a guy who was playing with Team USA last summer and was seen as one of the better young bigs in the NBA. Maybe didn't quite take the step that some were hoping this past season. Could you see Utah actually moving him?
Feels like Utah is very much in transition. It kind of seems like it's Lauri Markkanen, Keontae George, and then anybody else they're open to talk about there. They've talked about going star hunting this summer. They've talked about doing that through free agency or doing that through trades. We have been, I think, very locked into that the Jazz will probably renegotiate and extend Lauri Markkanen. I've been told by folks, sure, that's 100% on the table, but Lauri Markkanen is the first one to openly say, hey, if that's not where it goes and we can use our cap space to get players to start winning, I'm fine with that. We'll handle it in free agency the next year. So that's always a little scary, right? Because then it is, but then we could just lose the guy. But if you do things the right way, I kind of get where that's coming from. He's not a regular extension candidate because he doesn't make enough money on his current deal. This is why these deals that look good, like for example, the Malik Monk contract looks awesome right now. But by the end, it's not going to look so great because they're not going to be able to extend him if he continues to go up as a player. So that's a little bit of your challenge. But I do, that's a very long answer to your question of would they be willing to move Kessler? I think they probably are. I think they're very open to doing a lot of different things with that roster that can bring them the direction they want to go. I very much believe the Jazz are trying to move it forward. I think Danny Ainge's hope is I can do what I did with the Celtics. I can build a team that's trying to win now, and I can let other teams lose games for me. Now, whether Cleveland or Minnesota actually fall back in the pack, we'll see if that happens. But I think he's looking at it as I get a bunch of draft assets that we can let play out over the next, 5 years, I think, that they still have picks going out from those trades for. So why not? Let's try to move forward right now.
For Danny Ainge, the fun is in the building. I believe he enjoys that process.
Too. Yeah. I think he loves tearing it down and restarting and building it back up.
He's that guy that wins the championship in his dynasty league and then next year trades away all his players for picks just to build it back up again.
He wants to start over again. Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
All right, we've got a couple of minutes left here. The Hornets are open to a Miles Bridges sign and trade. And we had Miles Bridges, if we want to take it directly from the player himself, Miles Bridges talked about in his exit interview with the Hornets, he talked about that he really appreciated that the franchise stuck by him and his desire is to stay in Charlotte. Now, money talks. Malik Monk talked about how badly he wanted to stay with the Lakers. The Kings could offer him double that, and so he left. This happens, right? So it's possible that the Hornets are willing to offer X amount and another team is willing to offer much more. And there you go. That kind of stuff happens all the time. But I do think it's interesting that the Hornets are open to a Miles Bridges sign and trade. Maybe there's been a shift since the exit interviews with the Hornets a couple months ago.
I wonder how much of this is maybe the Hornets are a new front office, new coach, new owners. We want a fresh start here. Yeah. We're moving on in a different direction. So it's important to note too with Miles Bridges. I am not saying for any kind of anyone should feel bad for him, but Miles Bridges missed out on an entire year of pay. So he's going to want to make as much money as he can. And he missed out on that year pay because he absolutely should have. He put himself in that situation. That is very much you made your bed, now lie in it situation. So I don't feel bad for him in the slightest, but I would understand why he's probably going to do what's best for him to cash in wise. And if the Hornets are $35 million a year is above our number or more than that, all right, we'll work with you on a sign and trade then and get you where you want to go. And we're not going to touch that. So let's see where this one goes. I have come around to, I don't know that he's a Hornet next year. We'll see. Now we'll probably get in the next 10 minutes as soon as we're done recording the tweet that is Miles Bridges and Hornets agree to a 4-year contract or whatever, because I said that, but I don't know. We'll see.
And some in our chat are noting the team accepting him via sign and trade would be hard capping themselves at that first tier apron. So something to consider as well. If a team, if you have a team that is, say, the Bucks, right, that's already a first tier team, they would not be able to take on Miles Bridges in a sign and trade.
Correct. Yep. Limited market.
Yep. Exactly. Okay. Let's go. Oh, we did say we were going to talk a little bit about the Magic's interest in Klay Thompson. Oh, you mentioned that already.
I did. We
talked through that one. That's right. Yep. That's right. So much to get through today. I love this.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff today. Yeah,
there's so many different things.
A bunch of questions we should get to now.
Yeah, let's get to a few of these. We'll go rapid fire here at the end. Are there restrictions for new contracts where most is deferred later, like Shohei Ohtani in MLB? No, that's not a thing. In the NBA.
You can't do that in the NBA. Most of the contract can decline year over year in 99.9% of situations is it by 8%. So you can't go down by that much. The most you can go up is again by 8%. So you can't load a whole bunch of money into 1 year. So even with the declining contracts, which some teams prefer more than others, it's a very limited amount.
Yeah, right. Jermaine said, since players have the option to waive the trade kicker, what if Trae Young were to waive his trade kicker to play with Zion and stays at 43 and Brandon Ingram keeps him at 41.4? Would this be a legal trade? As long as the Pelicans, that I have to pull their cap sheet, as long as they're in a position where they can accept more salary in a trade, then you could do that.
As long as they're not a first close enough where they could probably send somebody else out and make it work. The good thing for the Pelicans as it stands right now today is they have a decent amount of clearance under even the tax but that's because they've got Valanciunas on there as a cap hold right now. They've got to do something to replace him to some extent, but they should have enough move to do something like this if that's the direction they wanted to go.
Yeah. So that's something that it would not be impossible for them to work around. Was there anything else we needed to get to here?
I think we're good. Do we hit every question that came in? I think I
believe so.
Super chats. That's good. Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, huge, right? Like just a lot of stuff going on. Was not expecting a Caruso trade yesterday by any means. That one came out of nowhere. For anybody wondering too, that trade is done. That trade's official. That trade was already completed. And made
Teams talked about it
today. So yep. So we're already in there. Thought it was very interesting how candid Sam Presti was in those comments about Josh Giddey didn't really like the role we had for him and wanted to play a bigger role. So we decided let's try to find something else for him with that. So there. So we did. Let's pull these up because Michael noted them. Okay, sure. I guess. I don't know. Banner flies forever anyway. Ring will be just as shiny. I'm not going to argue with the first part of this comment at all. I'll argue with they're not poverty because they make money off the team like crazy. And that kind of seems all they're really interested in doing. So,
yeah. Unfortunately, there have been a lot of people criticizing the Bulls. I hope a move on from Zach LaVine, whatever's going on here with the Caruso trade, I hope this is all the start of switching things over and switching their thinking, but I'll believe it when I see it because this is a franchise that is needed to make a decision one way or the other for a while now, and they just haven't done it. And I know Bulls fans have been very frustrated with that.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah,
they need to pick a direction.
You go back to when they had Michael Jordan, there's been whole books written on stuff with the Bulls. Jerry Reinsdorf, his baby is the Chicago White Sox. The Bulls are just a way he makes money to put it into the White Sox. I get it. The White Sox stink right now. I think they may have the worst record in Major League Baseball, but if not, it's pretty close. So I fully get where that's all coming from out of that, but that's been the case then. That was when they had MJ. It's never really changed. Not that they haven't been able to put together good teams, but it's a little bit. Oh, we got one more came in.
Yeah, anything on the Grizzlies front, just that they'll try to move up from 9, maybe to get Donovan Clingan. Keep an eye on them at 3 with the Rockets, who are willing to move that pick. Maybe they could do something there.
Stuff right now,
Marcus Smart. Yeah. It would make a lot of sense to do a Marcus Smart and 9 for 3 and whatever.
Grizzlies come away with a viable center option this summer. They could be a top 4 team in the West again.
For sure.
Like you got Morant, Bane, Jackson. They as bad as last year was, it allowed him to stumble into Vince Williams Jr. and GG Jackson, who can actually play a little bit on the wing. Pretty good depth. It's just centers. It's just what they don't have. So, so we'll see.
But they knew that when they executed the trades that they did. So they'll fix that this summer.
Yeah. I mean, they made the best. They took lemons and made lemonade out of last year's best they couldn't figure it out. All right, so we'll close with this. If you didn't get your questions answered, we had like over 8,000 people watching today, which is awesome, which also tells me people love the offseason. They're ready for it, Trevor, which is great for us here. But if you didn't get your questions answered, you want to talk more, I'll be starting a live show where we go live like in the evenings. It'll be short, so probably 15, 20, 25 minutes, maybe 30 if things are going really well. But we'll do a shorter show where I'll go live. I'll be answering some questions about the offseason. I may have Trevor on the first one for a little bit, just being completely full disclosure. He's going to have to teach me how to do it. So the best way will probably be for him to be there and help me set it up. But then I'll be doing those. We'll be doing those pretty regularly here throughout the beginning part of the offseason. Trevor and I will start going live nightly on June 30th. Be late hours or early hours in the morning, whatever it is. Generally, we try to we kind of feel it out and say, it looks like things might be slowing down a little bit. We'll come in and we'll recap everybody and go through everything that happened that day. We'll have a lot of fun with that. We get kind of punchy and get a little silly, but we take you through all the news of the day. And yes, we will be live for the first round, at least of the NBA draft.
Yep.
It'll be the two of us and our buddy Sean Davis will join us for that. Sean is up to speed on this draft. So we'll really run through a lot of that stuff too, man. We are going to be live with you guys a lot here beyond just the Fridays coming up, but we've got a lot of really fun stuff coming up.
And Keith, this comment from DA Baracus. Keith saying it's going to be a shorter show than go an hour per show. That's us. I do it all the time. It's not just here. I do it on Lakers Nation too. I did recently, like last few days, I did a solo show by myself and said, yeah, I'm pretty exhausted, planning on doing a shorter show. It went like 50 minutes or something like it's just, it's what happens. But I am excited to see these live shows. That'll be a lot of fun. And I think everybody's going to like those too, especially this time of year. There's so much going on. Like just between what happened yesterday while we were on our show to now, but 24 hours later, there's so much that we could have talked about, on a live show in the evening. So I'm excited to see the response to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm fired up for this, man. It's going to be a lot of fun. This is the best time of year, so we're super excited. Yep.
All right, everybody. Thank you again for joining us. We appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe, turn on those notifications, check out the Basketball Bulletin Substack, basketballbulletin.substack.com. I already put a link to the YouTube channel in here as well, so you guys give that a look. Be excellent to each other and party on, dudes.